Lisa happily distributes meals to the clamoring crowd at the newly established soup kitchen. Taking a brief respite from the busy crowds, Lisa sits at a table where Thylos approaches her with a sudden, playful request to repeat a word 10 times. Falling for the classic wordplay trick, Lisa confidently shouts the wrong answer to a simple riddle, prompting a smug grin from Thylos. As the younger girl realizes she has been completely fooled. Hoping to redeem herself, Lisa eagerly tries the exact same trick on the approaching Alfred. But the young governor instantly provides the correct logical answer, leaving her utterly defeated while Sir Cedric chuckles at her misery. Shifting back to business, Alfred instructs his team to specifically serve easily digestible meals to newcomers, explaining that the starving citizens would suffer severe medical complications if given solid food too quickly. Amazed by his thorough planning, Thylos points out the overwhelming sea of hungry citizens, noting that even the funds from liquidating his family's assets will never be enough to sustain everyone. Alfred calmly agrees that their current funds are insufficient, but reveals that the intelligence they recently extracted from the local criminal syndicate points to a massive hidden stockpile of wealth. With a sinister smirk that deeply unsettles Lisa, Thylos pieces together the governor's true intention, realizing they plan to violently raid the criminal organization and distribute their illicit fortune back to the townspeople. The governor's ruthless demeanor instantly melts into a gentle smile as he encourages a group of timid, starving children to eat as much as they want, a display of pure kindness that brings Lisa to tears. Watching the children eat, a wave of melancholy washes over Alfred, as he silently wishes he had been present in the past, believing his intervention could have saved his own sister from her tragic, untimely death. Elsewhere, the leader of the Obsidian Flame Syndicate violently wrecks his office in a fit of rage, while a young noble casually lounges on his sofa and advises him to calm down. Refusing to drop the issue, the furious syndicate leader demands to know how his commerce chief was defeated, noting that the young governor had brought terrifyingly skilled assistants to the fight. The lounging noble raids over the incident report in disbelief, questioning how heavily armed men were routed by a mere girl and a child, though the syndicate leader argues that Alfred's record-breaking magical academy scores make his entourage uniquely dangerous. Conceding that their enemies hid their true strength well, the noble suddenly pauses as he examines a photograph of Lisa, recognizing her connection to his own lecherous father. The noble casually reveals that his father frequently brought women home, and that Lisa bears a striking resemblance to a specific servant girl, who served as his very first victim. With a chillingly cheerful demeanor, the noble recounts how, at only 13 years old, he intentionally broke the refined servant girl, treating her as nothing more than a disposable toy to satisfy his twisted curiosity. He complains with sickening apathy that the girl took her own life immediately after the ordeal, annoyed that he only got to use her once, discarding his father's orders to simply assassinate the young governor. The sadistic noble declares his new intention to kidnap Lisa and keep her as a permanent replacement for her deceased sister, warned that overpowering the governor's forces will require an astronomically expensive mercenary. The wealthy noble gladly offers to fund the operation, boasting that he knows exactly who to hire for the job. With a manic grin, he reveals his plan to enlist one of the 3 holy sages of the Magic Guild, setting a catastrophic threat on a collision course with the unsuspecting girls. In the monsterkind capital, a man named Ammon kneels in apology before a grand throne. Sweating profusely, he reports his failure, admitting that they still have no information on the whereabouts of General Beelzebub. The imposing figure on the throne is identified as 100 Generals 8, Levitain. She calmly tells Ammon to raise his head. With a knowing smile, she accurately summarizes that Beelzebub slipped away from their guide Ammon to freely travel the human realm. Ammon confirms her summary is correct. Internally, he panics, realizing he cannot possibly tell her the full truth of what happened. Levitain explains that the 100 generals wield immense power and cherish their freedom. She notes that this love for freedom, especially in her child Beelzebub, has caused issues before. Conceding that she may have pampered them too much, she offers to apologize to Ammon on her offspring's behalf. Ammon frantically insists that she has no need to apologize, proclaiming that the failure is entirely his own incompetence. Levitain counters that before being a general, she is their mother, and it is her duty to apologize for the trouble they've caused. However, with a snap of her fingers, her tone shifts ominously. She summons a dark, swirling energy that materializes before the terrified Ammon. She states that he failed in his duty as Beelzebub's guide and must now take responsibility for his failure. Ammon can only cry out in terror at her words. Levitain calmly tells him that she understands his feelings perfectly. She notes his loyalty and knows that a simple, healable wound wouldn't suffice as an apology for him. She correctly surmises that he intends to apologize by gouging out his own heart and dying on the spot. However, she says she would hate to lose such a loyal subordinate. Tapping her fingers together, she asks if he understands what she means. With a sadistic grin, Levitain declares that they will proceed with his punishment in one swift stroke. Ammon can only let out a terrified shriek. Ammon finds his body moving against his will, while Levitain muses that it's odd Beelzebub hasn't contacted her. She dismisses her concern, assuming they will return for the upcoming 100 Generals Council. She then issues a chilling ultimatum. If Ammon is unable to find them by then, he understands the consequences he will face next time. She warns him that his debt will be far more than just a few fingers. A gruesome crunching sound echoes through the hall as Ammon screams in agony. Ammon jolts awake, his eyes wide with terror. He lies in his bed, panting heavily from the horrifying nightmare. He stumbles, still reeling from the experience. Looking at his hand, he sees the faint, scarred remnants of his punishment, a grim reminder that it was all too real. He recalls the feeling of being under Levitain's power. The memory overcomes him with nausea, and he retches by his bed. He clutches his chest, wondering why he must suffer through this. His mind settles on a single, unforgivable target. His face contorted with rage, Ammon vows that he will never forgive Cedric. He washes his face, desperate to find some way to relieve his pent-up stress. He decides he needs to make some poor insect suffer the same treatment he received. Suddenly, a solution comes to mind, as he remembers an offer he received to take care of a certain child. He remembers the job offer. It was a request from House Grandel, one of the 10 great lords, to deliver retribution to an irksome brat. While he would normally refuse such a vulgar request, he now finds it very convenient. With a twisted smile, he concludes that oppressing the weak is the perfect way to release his stress. Meanwhile, in the Brim Cross Central Avenue Entertainment District, two nobles meet in a gaudy club. Alfred remarks that this is the last place he'd expect a meeting between great lords, but his arrogant companion tells him not to be a buzzkill. The arrogant young noble claims he wants to forge friendly relations as a fellow member of the 10 great lords. Alfred agrees to listen to what he has to say, not wishing to create tension between them. The noble sits up, changing the subject. He angrily points out that Alfred has been holding his head too high throughout their meeting. He questions why Alfred is sitting at the same level as him, pointing out the difference in their family's ranks. Alfred calmly retorts that he is the current head of his family, while the other is merely the heir, so he sees no issue with foregoing such formalities. The noble dismisses his logic as tedious crap. The noble declares his hatred for lawful and logical arguments. Surrounded by his men, he gives Alfred an ultimatum: either be demolished by his family or bow down to him. Alfred, unimpressed, states that the noble is beyond salvation and reminds him that such intimidation tactics are ineffective. The noble warns Alfred that his defiant attitude won't last much longer. As Ammon appears in the doorway, the noble makes his triumphant reveal. He declares with manic glee that he has one of the 3 holy sages, Ammon, on his side. The noble is unceremoniously thrown aside as Ammon steps forward. His face a mask of sadistic anticipation, Ammon declares that the time has finally come to relieve all his stress. Not caring who the child is, Ammon proclaims that Alfred will be his personal punching bag. He announces that he will begin by witnessing the boy's face, painted with absolute despair. Alfred stares back, his expression completely calm and unfazed. Ammon's sadistic grin freezes, his eyes rolling back in his head as a wave of pure, unadulterated terror washes over him. In the gaudy club, Victor Grandel laughs maniacally, mocking the frozen state of Ammon. He boasts that anyone would be speechless when standing before one of the 3 holy sages, humanity's strongest mage. Victor turns his taunts to Alfred, acknowledging his reputation for skipping grades at the Magic Academy and his resulting confidence. However, Ammon, trembling, mutters that such abilities are nothing compared to his own. Fueled by this, Victor declares that what Alfred is witnessing is true strength, challenging him to summon a minion powerful enough to rival his. Ammon's mind reels in panic. He can't comprehend why Cedric, or Alfred as he's now known, is here. This was supposed to be a simple, one-sided slaughter of a weakling. As his composure crumbles, Ammon's gifted mind frantically analyzes the dire situation. His analysis yields a terrifying conclusion. In the room with him is a foe he must never fight. And an irrational moron, Victor, who is driving him straight to his death. As Victor excitedly orders him to attack and teach the brat a lesson, Ammon knows what he must do. While Victor eagerly shouts for Lord Ammon to act, Ammon's mind simplifies the complex situation down to its core. The only solution was violence. In a shocking turn, Ammon pivots and delivers a powerful blow not to Alfred, but to Victor, knocking the young noble unconscious. As Victor's attendant cries out in shock, Ammon catches his breath. He declares that he now understands the situation perfectly. He proclaims that Victor Grandel, heir to House Grandel, is entirely at fault. Ammon begins to spin a new narrative, stating that Lord Alfred of House Baliol has been working to cleanse Brim Cross of crime. He then points out that Victor Grandel is known to be involved with the criminal guild. Therefore, as acting commander-in-chief of the Magic Guild, Ammon declares he is obligated to give House Baliol his full support. He claims he already had suspicions when he reviewed Victor's request. Ammon passionately declares that he is duty-bound to purge such evil from the world. Victor's attendant is baffled, recalling Ammon's glee just moments before, wondering if he's lost his mind. But Ammon knows this is the only way for him to deal with the situation. Alfred calmly observes, remarking that he finds Sir Ammon's skill for spinning elaborate excuses quite impressive. Ammon is startled as Alfred presses him for clarification. He asks if he correctly understands that the Magic Guild intends to support his initiative and stand at the forefront of their efforts. Ammon hastily agrees, swearing the Magic Guild has always punished criminal guilds. Alfred expresses his relief, noting they were short on hands for the cleanup. Alfred then asks if Ammon was aware he'd be at this meeting. He answers his own question, stating it was pure happenstance, though he felt this confrontation was inevitable. With a sinister smile, Alfred explains his policy of making use of everything at his disposal. Cornered and outmaneuvered, Ammon can only grit his teeth, recognizing Alfred as Cedric. He screams in frustration that Alfred's plans won't always succeed. Meanwhile, in the imperial capital, the Imperial Council of the 10 Great Lords discusses a peasant rebellion in the eastern regions. They agree to massacre the rebels even if they surrender, to make an example of them. Auguste de Grandel speaks up, stating he is against the proposed example. He calls the idea far too tepid. He suggests a crueler fate, stripping the revolters of all human rights and legalizing violence against them. Their daily suffering would serve as a living lesson for the populace. He concludes that this will be a model of what awaits those who defy the empire. The other lords praise his excellent proposal. When the conversation turns to the troublemaker, House Baliol, Auguste dismisses them as a non-issue. He confidently states that his son and the criminal guild Obsidian Flame are already handling it. He adds that they have even secured the aid of Sir Ammon of the 3 holy sages. This means Alfred's life is forfeit. The council agrees that with their predecessor in jail and a greenhorn at the helm, House Baliol is weak. Auguste declares that House Baliol is history. Auguste smirks, finding it humorous that the council proceeds even with the emperor absent. He mocks the emperor as a mere figurehead, who would contribute nothing even if he were present. The other lords laugh in agreement. Suddenly, an assistant bursts into the council chamber, shouting for Lord Auguste. Annoyed by the interruption, he demands to know what is so urgent. The assistant rushes to his side and whispers frantically in his ear. Auguste's expression turns to one of shock as he slams his hand on the table, demanding she repeat what she just said. His face a mask of disbelief, Auguste yells out the news he just received. Sir Ammon and the entirety of the Magic Guild have rallied themselves behind House Baliol. The guild boss is furious, demanding to know if this is the entirety of the week's profits and telling his men to do something about it. A battered subordinate wobbles as he apologizes profusely. He explains that their drug business has been getting cracked down hard by the Baliol's successor. The boss brings a bottle down on his subordinate's hand. He grips the subordinate's wrist tightly. The subordinate cries out in shock and pain. With a savage roar, the boss smashes the bottle, shattering both it and his subordinate's hand on the table. The boss lectures the injured man, shouting that he doesn't want excuses. He screams that the next time there's a mess up, the man will pay with more than just his fingers. His tirade is suddenly interrupted by another subordinate bursting into the room, shouting that they have a code red situation. The lookout announces a raid. The boss snaps, livid at the interruption. He arrogantly dismisses the threat, assuming it's just the Knights of the Guard, who he claims have no authority anymore. He boasts that they are backed by the 10 great lords. As his man tries to tell him the truth, the boss grows impatient. He violently kicks the lookout aside before he can finish his warning. An elegantly dressed man steps into the room, tipping his hat and remarking that the place reeks of corruption. The enraged guild boss demands to know who he is. The man calmly asks if he didn't just hear his subordinates report mere moments ago. He clarifies that they are not the Knights of the Guard. The man introduces himself as Theodore, the former head of the Knights of the Guard, now serving as the Security Management Commissioner for House Belial. The guild boss spots the crest of the Magic Guild, and his blood runs cold. He stares in disbelief, realizing that members of the Magic Guild are here. Theodore calmly explains that they have come in a joint operation with the Magic Guild to crack down on the city's criminal organizations. He advises the boss to surrender peacefully, stating that no amount of excuses can help him now. Cornered and outmatched, the boss can only grit his teeth as his knife clatters to the floor. The former criminal headquarters is now converted into a poverty relief facility. A report details the success of the operation. Obsidian Flame's headquarters shut down, over 10 criminal guilds eliminated, and more than 500 individuals arrested. Deathblaze remarks that Master Alfred never ceases to amaze him, calling the purge of Brim Cross an impressive feat. Alfred deflects the praise, saying the credit belongs to those who took to the field. He explains that it's important to completely uproot such infestations in one go, which is why he sought a messenger when he realized they lacked the manpower. Deathblaze thinks back, admitting to himself that Ammon's surprise cooperation was a welcome development. He had doubted Alfred's decision to spare Ammon, but he never imagined his master would take advantage of the situation in such an elegant way. His thoughts are interrupted as he calls out to Alfred. A girl, Mio, chases a boy named Elliot, accusing him of eating her snacks. Deathblaze notes that they must be the twins he has grown close to. Alfred observes their sibling squabble from a distance. Mio shouts that if Elliot keeps being mean, the elegance is totally going to come. Alfred and Deathblaze are left completely baffled by the exchange. The strange threat makes Elliot freeze in his tracks, terrified. Elliot cries out, yelling anything but that. A confused Deathblaze asks the children what this elegance is, and they explain it's a super strong person who punishes mean people. Hearing this, Deathblaze immediately turns on Alfred, accusingly asking what he's been teaching the children. Elliot clarifies that Big Sis Lisa was the one who told them the story. Deathblaze realizes with exasperation who the culprit is. Alfred pats his shoulder, trying to calm him down. He tells Deathblaze not to take it to heart since they're only children. However, Alfred trails off thoughtfully. A wicked smile spreads across Alfred's face as he muses that Lisa might need to be taught a small lesson. A frantic messenger dashes towards them. Alfred asks what's wrong, noting the man is as white as a sheet. The messenger announces that Lord Auguste de Grandel, one of the 10 great lords, has arrived to see him. In a sitting room, Lord Auguste sips his tea. He contemptuously smashes the cup on the floor, declaring it utterly unpalatable. Alfred, unfazed by the display, tells him to forgo the farce and state his business. Auguste acknowledges Alfred's impressive feat of involving the Magic Guild to uproot the criminal infestation. He states that the profits of those organizations were monopolized by the 10 great lords, and since Alfred took no part in them, his actions are a glaring declaration of animosity. He accuses Alfred of intending to establish his own criminal guild to monopolize the profits. Alfred cuts him off, demanding he plainly state his business. Auguste replies that he has come to negotiate. He proposes that in the future, House Belial will be allocated a portion of the bribes received from the criminal guild. He presents this as a sound offer, one that would avoid an all-out war with the 10 great lords. Auguste thinks to himself that even a greenhorn should accept such a beneficial offer. He tells Alfred that they must first address the consequences of his actions. Alfred's eyes narrow as he repeats the word consequences. Smirking, Auguste states that he is not one to take such a blow without retaliation, especially since he's offering an amicable compromise. August lays out his terms. Alfred must attend the next council, kneel to apologize and vow loyalty. Only then will they accept him. He threatens that the life of anyone who dares to defy him will face complete destruction by his hand. If Alfred declines, he can expect a full-scale conflict. With a predatory grin, August delivers his final warning. In a private room, Marie Belial lies with a man, asking how the brat reacted to their plans. Marie scoffs, declaring she has never once considered Alfred her son. Marie proclaims that the only child of House Belial is Henry, the son she gave birth to. Her lover questions this, pointing out that Henry is believed to be Algren's son. With a wicked smile, Marie confirms this, relishing the thought of Algren's reaction when he learns the truth. She imagines his face when he discovers that Henry is, in fact, their child. The man, Lord August, says he wants to confirm something regarding Alfred. He informs Marie that Alfred has agreed to attend the next Imperial Council of the 10 Great Lords. Marie excitedly assumes this means Alfred will kneel and admit defeat. August agrees that's likely, but reveals he wants to secure some insurance just in case. At the Imperial Council, Emperor Aurelius notes the attendance of House Belial's new lord. Alfred Belial, the new head of House Belial, sits stoically at the table. Imperial Chancellor Robert Cavendish remarks that with everyone present, this is the first time all 10 of the new great lords have gathered. Among them is Lord Auguste de Grandel, the head of House Grandel. The meeting has barely begun when Chancellor Cavendish addresses the Emperor. He humbly requests that His Majesty depart from the council. August smirks, revealing that they are about to stage Alfred's public show of apology. The lords reason that they cannot have the Emperor witness them demanding an apology, as it might stoke his sense of justice. An incensed Emperor Aurelius questions why he, a first-time participant, must forfeit his attendance. Cavendish explains that with 7 votes, their faction can take full control of the meeting. Cavendish confidently challenges the Emperor, asking if he'd like to see how many will vote for his leave. Seething with quiet rage, Aurelius remarks that the definition of emperor seems to need revision. He states he will consult a scholar to record that an emperor is little more than a puppet. As the emperor prepares to leave, Alfred speaks up, telling him there is no need to go. August sneers, wondering if Alfred fails to understand that this would only increase his humiliation. Alfred explains they demanded the emperor's absence so he wouldn't witness the tasteless show of humility they planned. He reveals they demanded he kneel in apology for the loss of their bribe money from the criminals he exposed. The emperor is aghast, calling their demand utter insanity. Alfred then turns to Lord August, asking if he remembers the words he spoke to him. August recalls his threat of a full-scale conflict, dismissing Alfred's defiance as useless resistance. Alfred calmly states that he doesn't mind a conflict in the least. To August's shock, Alfred Belial formally accepts their declaration of war. The other lords are stunned. Both August and Cavendish are furious, thinking that the extent of Alfred's foolishness is unbelievable. The emperor realizes Alfred intends to appeal to his virtues, but knows he is just a figurehead. He laments that he has no real power to protect him. August mocks Alfred, suggesting he has misunderstood his relationship with the Magic Guild. August argues that the formidable Magic Guild cannot be moved by the whims of a fledgling lord. Alfred asks what he would say if the holy sage Ammon had already agreed to help. He quotes Ammon's pledge to stand by his side and eradicate corruption in the capital. August inwardly dismisses Alfred's words as a bluff, but the boy's confidence gives him pause. Deciding not to take any chances, he resolves to play his trump card immediately. He addresses the Chancellor, proposing a new topic for the council. He questions whether Alfred is truly the rightful choice to lead House Belial. August formally proposes that the council strip Alfred of his lordly rights. Meanwhile, in a dark prison corridor, an official leads someone to a cell. The official announces their arrival to the former Lord, Algren Belial. Algren grimly acknowledges the official's arrival. Another inmate confronts him, angry that he is late. The inmate continues his tirade, calling Algren a useless piece of trash. He questions what happened to the loyalty he once showed. As he swings a punch, Algren remains silent. He simply raises a hand to block the attack. The inmate's fist is stopped by a force barrier. He recoils in shock, demanding to know how Algren can use magic when he is supposed to be wearing a magic sealing crest. Algren smirks, revealing he had the crest removed just moments ago. Algren announces that he has been released and reinstated as the Lord of House Belial. The inmate cries out in disbelief. He wonders why a free man would return to a prison cell. Algren turns to the other inmates, telling them to prepare for the consequences. He remembers all those who witnessed his humiliation. With a terrifying grin, Algren declares they must all pay with their lives. Emperor Aurelius is stunned by August's proposal to change the head of the Belial family. August calmly confirms that this is indeed his intention. Reminding August that Alfred is the rightful eldest son, he demands to know who would dare lead the family in his stead. August names his candidate, Algren Belial, Alfred's father. The emperor is aghast, recalling that Algren is imprisoned for the mass murder of the Dragon People tribe. August acknowledges the unfortunate incident, musing on the fact that a member of the 10 Great Lords was imprisoned at all. He then reveals that Algren was incarcerated for a crime he did not commit. The revelation leaves the emperor utterly shocked. August explains that a reinvestigation has proven Algren's complete innocence. The emperor, leaning over the table in disbelief, questions how this could be possible given the mountain of evidence against him. August dismisses the details as something for the Minister of Justice to handle later. The emperor is left stammering, trying to process the implications of what he's being told. Furious, the emperor accuses August of disregarding the truth. August coolly replies that what he conveys is the will of the 10 Great Lords. Disgusted by their vile tactics, the emperor declares he will never approve such a decision. August simply tells him to do as he pleases. August reminds him that by tradition, the majority rules the council, and their numbers will ensure they prevail. The emperor feels powerless, unable to protect Alfred as he fights. His thoughts drift to his departed friend, Cedric. He laments their broken vows to rebuild the empire together. The emperor despairs that no one is left to stop the empire's rampage. August, noting that the emperor is still a figurehead, turns his attention to Alfred. He declares that Alfred is to be stripped of his position as head of his family and asks if he has anything to say. To August's surprise, Alfred simply says he has nothing to say. August taunts him, asking what happened to his earlier bravado and his acceptance of their war. He tells Alfred that his change in attitude is understandable, since he is now a powerless nobody. August laughs, declaring this is what happens when one brandishes a meaningless sense of justice. August gloats about the power of the Great Lords and how they fight their battles. He declares that Alfred has picked a war with the wrong opponents and orders him to leave. As the Lords laugh, Alfred turns to leave, a thoughtful expression on his face. As he walks away, Alfred thinks to himself that it's amusing how everything is proceeding exactly as he expected. He clenches his fist, his calm demeanor hiding a simmering intensity. Meanwhile, at the main residence of House Belial, Algren arrives. He announces his triumphant return. He spots a maid and demands her attention, and she timidly asks how she can help. Algren angrily demands to know why no one is welcoming the rightful lord of the family. A man named Simon appears, offering to answer Algren's questions. Seeing him, Algren explodes in rage, demanding to know how the bastard dares to show his face again. Simon calmly explains that this is a matter of national importance and cannot be approved so lightly. He clarifies that because the emperor voted against the proposal, the change in leadership will not take effect immediately. There will be a 1-month deliberation period before another vote makes the change official. Algren furiously shouts that he doesn't care for such intricacies. Algren insists that waiting a month won't change the decision, but Simon states that he is not the current lord. Therefore, there is no place for him in the residence, and he must leave. This prompts a furious outburst from Algren, who has just been released from prison with no transport. Algren rants that he has no money for transport or a room, demanding that Simon provide him with funds. Simon repeats his command with cold finality, "Please take your leave." Pushed to his limit, Algren can only scream in pure unadulterated rage, calling Simon a pig-headed fool. Elsewhere, August declares that the die has been cast. His co-conspirator notes that their open defiance of the emperor may have been premature, but assumes August already has their next move planned, which he confirms. August reveals his plan. They will conduct a grand expedition to the north to quell the barbarians. The expedition will include the imperial guards under the emperor's direct command. The goal is to have the guards completely wiped out, and August has already planted a spy to ensure it. His ally remarks on his mercilessness in robbing the emperor of his last sliver of strength. August explains that once the emperor loses all authority, they will carry out their coup. After their success, he will become the imperial chancellor. His ally declares that he will become the new emperor. As for Alfred, he will be appointed commander of the Imperial Guard and sent to the front lines to be eliminated. The other lord questions if the plan will work, noting Alfred's capability, but August reminds him of their spies. August explains that the northern Zaragatos tribe is a foe the Empire has been unable to defeat for a specific reason. His ally realizes he is referring to the power of a divine being. August confirms that their king is able to call upon this power. With a malevolent grin, August reveals the true nature of this power is that of a godly being. He specifies it is one of the kings of hell, the being known as Abaddon. Lisa and Thylos are shocked to hear about an expedition to the north to fight barbarians and that Al has been ordered to join. Al confirms that the summons order states the main force will be the Imperial Guards who answer directly to the Emperor. Thylos expresses concern, noting that the Imperial Guards' numbers were greatly reduced last year, questioning their chances of victory. Al calmly predicts they will face utter defeat, which is only natural. He explains this is precisely what his two adversaries are planning. Lisa is confused, asking what he means. Al elaborates that his enemies intend to rob the Emperor of his remaining authority and strength, such as the Imperial Guards. Al adds that since he's an eyesore to them, they've chosen him to lead the expedition to the front lines. Lisa jumps up, calling it crazy talk, while Al confirms they are essentially ordering him to march to his death. However, with a confident smirk, he states that this absurdity means nothing to him, as he fully expected this scenario. Lisa is incredulous that Al anticipated all of this. He explains that he could have silenced his opponents at the council, but chose not to, prompting Lisa to ask why. Al reveals with a smirk that he intends to utilize all their schemes for his own benefit. Al explains that as long as he accompanies the guards, he won't allow them to be wiped out. More importantly, he intends to win over the Zaragatos tribe. Thylos and Lisa are stunned by this revelation, with Thylos asking if he means to turn their enemies into allies. Al explains that while the Zaragatos tribe is looked down upon as barbarians, they are an excellent fighting force. Furthermore, he declares the tribe is essential for developing Brim Cross further. Lisa is confused, unable to see how a fighting tribe could help improve a town. Al then turns to Thylos, asking for a report on the status of Brim Cross. Thylos reports that while they've made progress, the town's underlying poverty persists and will take years to resolve. Lisa brightly suggests Al can just use his magic to solve their money problem. Al sighs, noting that Lisa needs a simple explanation before they can move forward. Al begins his explanation using the orphanage as an example, questioning who will care for and feed the children. He states that without a system for townspeople to work and earn money, the town will never develop economically. The reality is that the poor need jobs, and their current funds are only a temporary solution. Thus, Al declares they need a public works project. He plans to use the local monsters as a reason to finance the construction of a wall around the entire town. Thylos realizes this will be the first step in creating work, turning Brim Cross into a fortified city. Lisa perceptively asks if this isn't just a temporary fix, as the jobs will disappear once the wall is complete. Al praises Lisa's perceptiveness, calling it a crucial point of the plan. He explains that the townspeople will earn a steady income from the wall's construction, which they will use to purchase goods. This will increase sales for merchants, rejuvenating commerce and creating more employment opportunities. The initial investment will create a ripple effect of employment, consumption, and investment. He grandly concludes that this will lead to an economic impact that far exceeds their initial investment. His explanation leaves Thylos and Lisa completely baffled. Thylos suddenly recognizes the concept, identifying it as the multiplier effect. He recalls it's a state-of-the-art economic theory written by an anonymous researcher 2 years ago. Lisa is impressed by Thylos's knowledge, as she has never heard of it. Al seems pleased that Thylos is familiar with the theory. With a confident grin, Al drops a bombshell: he is the author of that paper. Lisa exclaims that he's done it again, making a casual but massive reveal. Thylos can't believe Al anonymously wrote the cutting-edge research that sent waves through the capital's scholars. Returning to the topic, Al states that the project is merely a stimulus and asks what is truly needed to develop a town. Thylos correctly guesses new technology and a fresh workforce, suggesting they accept immigrants. Al confirms this, revealing he has already sent a messenger to the dragon people and other demi-humans with his plans. Thylos is astounded at his efficiency, realizing Al has already negotiated a large-scale inbound migration. Al continues, explaining that the Zaragatos tribe's army will reside there, becoming a pivotal force against monster kind. Lisa and Thylos begin to understand the wider implications for the town and the Empire. Al reveals his ultimate goal for after the war, for the town to become a commercial hub for demi-humans and frontier dwellers. His vision is for Brim Cross to develop into a fortified trading city. He explains that while the Empire's economy is currently centered in municipal cities, his plan will make the frontier its new heart. Thylos shudders, envisioning the possibilities. Al paints a picture of a market filled with precious goods from various tribes and peoples, impossible to produce elsewhere in the Empire. He points out that the Empire's prejudice against frontier dwellers and demi-humans is what's holding the nation back. Clenching his fist, Al declares that in Brim Cross, he will not tolerate any discrimination against demi-humans. Thylos is in awe, realizing Al's plan extends far beyond the war into creating a massive new economic zone. Al reminds them that he said from the beginning he would exploit his enemies' schemes for his own benefit. Looking out over the town, Al smiles with satisfaction, stating that everything is going according to his plan. Al explains his grand vision, stating that the Empire has always been on the brink of starvation, and he intends to change this, starting with Brim Cross. He believes this will give them a crucial advantage in the future war against monster kind. Thylos is amazed, admitting he never imagined Al had thought so far ahead, and asks for Lisa's agreement. Lisa is completely lost, apologizing that the topic was too complicated for her to understand. Seizing the opportunity, Al says he has a question for Lisa, who asks what it is. He brings up a rumor he heard from a child at the orphanage that the elegance will punish those who commit bad deeds. After a brief off-screen interaction, Al drags a dazed Lisa away. The following day, she is found in a silent, almost enlightened state on the couch. Thylos approaches cautiously, trying to get her attention as she mutters about Al. Lisa blissfully declares that Al made her see the light, prompting a shocked Thylos to demand what he did to her. A new voice remarks that Lisa must have faced Al's lesson, just as she has. Lady Ophelia has arrived, much to Thylos' surprise. Ophelia embraces Lisa, declaring her a new comrade in suffering. Thylos can only watch as the two form a mysterious sense of camaraderie. Al apologizes for the sudden summons, admitting he didn't expect her to make it. Ophelia replies with unwavering loyalty, stating she will always answer his call. While Lisa wonders why Ophelia is there, Al explains that he predicts chaos, possibly even an assassination attempt on the Emperor, and needs more allies. He declares that he intends to rely on both Lisa and Thylos as his reliable allies. Lisa enthusiastically agrees, proclaiming that Al can count on them. At the Grand Plaza in the Facilia Empire capital, a massive army has assembled. From a balcony, Algren gestures to the troops below, presenting them to the Emperor. Algren boasts that the 10,000 knights of House Belial's Order of the Phoenix Wings will cleanse the land of barbarians. He laments not having them during the Valnora's campaign, believing their presence would have guaranteed victory. The Emperor acknowledges Algren's gallant army, and Algren thanks him for the kind words. However, the Emperor notes that while the Phoenix Wings are a fine addition, he cannot say the same for the rest of the army. The Emperor's aide observes that the other lords only sent a small number of mercenaries and that Algren's deployment is merely a subterfuge. The Emperor grimly concludes that the main force will be his 70,000 Imperial Guards who are being sent to their deaths. He realizes the other lord's goal is to eliminate his soldiers while minimizing their own losses. He laments that there is no justice to be found in this battle. The aide spots a small group approaching, identifying the leader as Al, the former head of House Belial. Algren apologizes to the Emperor, calling his approaching son a disgraceful fool. He mocks Al for failing to assemble a presentable force, seeing it as proof of his foolishness. Algren internally gloats, believing that by bringing all of his house's forces, he has left no one to answer his son's call. Al and his companions stop before the Emperor's party. The Emperor looks down with a stunned expression. Al kneels before the Emperor, asking for forgiveness for the gesture. He declares his intention to fulfill his duties as the commander of the Imperial Guards for this expedition. Algren erupts in fury, calling Al a fool and reminding him that all the great lords, including himself, have donated soldiers to the cause. Algren continues his tirade, berating Al for daring to speak of his duties when he has only brought a small band with him, calling him a foolish disgrace. But as he points accusingly, he notices something in the distance and wonders what it is. A massive flock of dragons and wyverns darkens the sky. Al looks up with a smirk, commenting that they have finally arrived. Algren screams in disbelief, unable to comprehend what he is seeing. He recognizes the creatures, but is shocked by their bolstered numbers. As his father panics, Al calmly bows to the Emperor, apologizing for his reinforcements' late arrival. Al announces that 500 dragons from 7 of Valnor's settlements will join the expedition. He will march into battle with them under his command, in service of the Emperor. The Emperor can only stare, wide-eyed and sweating, at this unbelievable turn of events. In the Grand Plaza, Algren Balial stares at the sky in utter disbelief. He cannot comprehend the sight of such a massive number of dragons, questioning if what he's seeing is even real. Watching from a balcony, a young noble named Cedri is equally stunned by the display. He struggles to understand how one man could possibly command such an enormous quantity of dragons. The sight leaves him to wonder about Alfred's true identity. The Emperor's aide stands beside a confident Alfred. The aide calls out to Cedri, trying to ground him. Cedri, however, is lost in thought, believing that despite this miraculous feat, he might be expecting too much from someone so young. The aide counters that the fact remains: Alfred summoned an army of dragons, proving he is no mere boy. Cedri shudders, looking at Alfred and silently demanding to know who he really is. Elsewhere, a masked dragon rider observes the scene. Algren's aide spots Ophelia among the dragon riders. Algren begins to summarize the situation for his aide. He concludes that the dragon people joined out of fear of the holy sage, Isabella. His aide agrees, adding that they are likely trying to prove their loyalty to the Empire to avoid suffering her wrath again. Algren believes Ophelia is doing the same, leveraging her prior acquaintance with Alfred to demonstrate the dragon people's allegiance. Still, he finds this development far from ideal. He fears that Alfred's new forces could disrupt the battlefield's power balance. His aide reminds him of their goal, to weaken the Emperor's forces in the expedition. Algren worries that a strong performance from Alfred's army would be troublesome, even if they can't win. With a sinister grin, Algren declares that according to his plan, the Emperor's forces must suffer a catastrophic defeat, and he will accept no other outcome. His aide is shocked by the intensity of his master's declaration. Algren decides that extra measures are now required. The measure he proposes is to add his other son to the army's ranks. Algren is confident that his son, Victor, will be able to disrupt the battlefield. His aide adds that he will also order their covert units within the Imperial Guards to cause disruptions from the inside. Algren agrees, stating that this will be the finishing touch to their plan. The aide smirks, calling it a masterplan. The scene shifts and Lisa shouts in protest, demanding to know why the dragon people can't join them on the expedition. Alfred explains that the Imperial Army's ranks are now thin, so the dragon people have been ordered to stay behind and defend the capital. Thylos calmly identifies it as thinly veiled harassment. He then turns to Alfred, suspecting that he anticipated this response from their enemies. Alfred, intrigued, asks Thylos what makes him think so. Thylos points out that Alfred has shown no reaction to this turn of events. While Alfred claims to have objected, Thylos isn't convinced. He insists it was merely for formality's sake, as it's not in Alfred's nature to let his army be stolen so easily. Amused, Alfred invites him to continue. Thylos lays out his theory. Their adversaries intend to exhaust the Imperial Guards in this expedition, then stage a coup. Thylos reaches his conclusion. Alfred is intentionally leaving the dragon people behind to protect the capital and his majesty. Alfred confirms his deduction is correct, praising Thylos for how much he has grown. Thylos, pleased, accepts the compliment. Lisa is crestfallen, lamenting that she couldn't figure any of that out despite thinking she had improved. Alfred tries to comfort her, saying she doesn't need to compete with Thylos in wits. He then adds that she was never cut out for mentally demanding tasks anyway, sending her into a state of gloom. Alfred stands, announcing it is time for them to depart. They arrive at the barracks of the Imperial Guard's 3rd Division. A large, beast-like man approaches, apologizing for the delay. He introduces himself as Leopold Strauss, the vice-commander of the division. Alfred introduces himself in return, and the two men face off. Leopold immediately issues a warning, stating that the battlefield is no playground for a young noble to command on a whim. He then confronts Alfred directly, asking if it's true that he was disowned by his father, Lord Algren. As other soldiers snicker in the background, Leopold calls it an amusing story. He grabs Alfred, questioning why a noble stripped of all power would be chosen to lead a division of the army. He declares that his soldiers have pledged loyalty only to the Emperor and are ready to wager their honor on the battlefield. Leaning in menacingly, Leopold asks what kind of pledge they should make to a disowned noble boy. From the crowd, a soldier adds that they aren't against Alfred playing pretend as their commander. Leopold roars that Alfred should drill one thing into his head. On the battlefield, utterly incompetent leaders are always the first to fall. Unfazed, Alfred coolly observes that every single one of them is just as hot-headed as the next. A few days later, while on the march with the 3rd Division, Alfred notes that they are about 3 days from Zaragato's territory. Thylos, riding beside him, questions their late departure, wondering why they were the last to leave. Thylos points out that the Order of the Phoenix Wings, led by Algren, is at the vanguard, and Ophelia exclaims that letting him lead will only get his army destroyed. Alfred grimly reveals that the true purpose of the expedition is to orchestrate the Imperial Army's crushing defeat. He explains that if defeat is the goal, no one is more suited for the task than Algren, a man who excels at dragging his allies down with him. Alfred continues his scathing assessment, stating that even a child with a toy army could command better than Algren. Ophelia thinks he's exaggerating, but Lisa disagrees. Alfred concludes with a chilling declaration: a useless ally is a more terrifying foe than the fiercest of enemies. Thylos worries about letting the Phoenix Wings lead the battle. Alfred reassures him, explaining that once they enter Zaragato's territory, they will have more freedom to act, and their delay will not cause any issues. Just then, their conversation is interrupted, as Leopold calls out to his new commander. Leopold rides up to Alfred, offering a piece of advice. He mocks Alfred's disowned status, claiming no one in the division would be willing to follow his orders. Alfred calmly notes that he heard Alfred graduated from the Magic Academy with excellent grades. Taking this as a challenge, Leopold suggests that Alfred prove his strength to the men. To demonstrate what he means, Leopold unsheathes his sword. With a powerful roar, he strikes a massive boulder nearby. The rock shatters from the force of the single blow. The soldiers are impressed by their vice-commander's display of power. Leopold boasts about his amazing magic swordsmanship and the elite status of the 3rd Division. Thylos observes that such a show of force is the most direct way to earn the respect of these warriors, but Alfred seems to think otherwise. Leopold continues his taunt, scoffing that such respect is only earned if a mere academy graduate is capable of matching him. Meanwhile, Ophelia turns to Lisa, remarking on how annoying she finds the vice-commander. Ophelia asks if she can just kill him, prompting a panicked Lisa to shush her. Unfortunately, Leopold overhears and asks if she just said kill. Ophelia defiantly confirms it. The vice-commander is appalled by her violent speech and complains about the presence of children in an army. Thylos gets Alfred's attention before Leopold can continue. Annoyed by the constant harassment, Thylos suggests Alfred simply destroy a boulder to shut them up. Alfred agrees that it might be time. Leopold mockingly asks what their commander plans to show them, declaring that the veterans are waiting with bated breath. Alfred internally acknowledges Leopold's strength is likely how he commands the division. Alfred muses that the well-trained 3rd Division was likely sent late so they wouldn't tip the scales in the Imperial Army's favor. He then announces that this isn't the right place to showcase his power. Leopold seizes the opportunity, laughing that Alfred is running from the challenge and that no one will follow such a coward. As Alfred rides ahead, a concerned Thylos calls out to him. Alfred simply explains that destroying a mere tree or boulder would be too much of a bore for a true display of his strength. Their path is soon blocked by a fortified checkpoint. A gatekeeper halts their advance, stating they cannot pass. Leopold rides forward, identifying them as the Imperial Guard's 3rd Division on their way to quell the barbarians. The gatekeeper, however, claims to have no information about their arrival. Leopold insists that they must be granted passage. The gatekeeper counters that they have no proof of their identity. He then issues a challenge. If they are truly the elite 3rd Division, they should be able to wield ritual magic to break through the gate. This, he declares, will prove their strength and identity. Leopold is taken aback, knowing his elite magic unit was wiped out. The gatekeeper smirks, revealing he knows their magic troops were destroyed and that his superiors ordered him to stop their march. Defeated, Leopold decides they must send a messenger to the capital to sort out the miscommunication. Ophelia panics, realizing that sending for the capital will delay them by 5 days. As she turns to Alfred, she finds he has already dismounted. He calmly walks toward the gate, suggesting the gatekeeper stand back for his own safety. Alfred points a finger at the gate, reminding the guards that they asked for a showcase of strength. Leopold is confused, muttering that breaking the gate would require an elite unit of 100 mages. His words are cut short as a massive sphere of magical energy forms before Alfred, dwarfing the fortress wall. With a wicked grin, Alfred unleashes his spell, an ultimate-tier magic known as Eternal Flare. The resulting explosion obliterates the gate and a portion of the wall, leaving his companions and the soldiers screaming in utter shock. The gatekeeper and Leopold can only stare in horror at the devastation. Standing calmly amidst the lingering flames, Alfred turns to his division and announces that they can now be on their way. Within a forward camp in Zaragato's tribe territory, the leaders of the Night Orders gather for a strategic meeting. Supreme Commander Algren Belial begins, addressing the assembled commanders with a wild grin. Algren slams his hand on the map, declaring their destination is Fort Trausen, a barbarian fortress 6 miles ahead. Leaning against a tent post, Alfred reports that according to their scouts, the enemy numbers only around 500. Victor Grandel scoffs, confident that their 50,000-strong force can crush them easily. Algren adds that Fort Trausen was originally built by the Empire 2 centuries ago. He proclaims they will reclaim the fort, securing victory in their first battle and establishing a foothold deep in barbarian territory. Internally, Algren smirks, thinking that taking the fortress is merely a prerequisite for the true objective, decimating the Imperial Guards. His train of thought is interrupted when Alfred speaks up, asking the Supreme Commander if he finds the situation strange. Alfred explains that the Zaragatos are distinguished warriors who must have noticed their advance, yet they've only stationed a meager 500 soldiers at a key stronghold. He wagers that the barbarians are plotting something. Victor Grandel laughs dismissively, questioning the idea of a trap from what he calls a group of illiterate fools. He argues that if their forces were truly that small, the logical move would have been to retreat. Another commander suggests that perhaps withdrawal isn't an option for them, due to some barbaric law where retreating means death. Another man, likely Victor's father, steps forward to apologize for his disowned son's foolishness. Ignoring the interruption, Algren asks if everyone is now in agreement to conquer the fort with their full strength and is met with silence. Enraged, Algren shouts, questioning if they are truly afraid of 500 men when they have 50,000. One of the commanders speaks up, siding with Alfred's caution. He doubts even barbarians would defend a fort with so few men. He slams the table, roaring that the enemy are called barbarians because they are foolish morons. The commander who spoke up reluctantly concedes. Seizing the moment, Algren volunteers to lead his own Order of the Phoenix Wings to conquer the fortress. He sees it as a chance for personal glory, believing it will be seen as a great achievement. Victor agrees to the plan, while Alfred quietly states he will take care of the rearguard. Algren smugly tells Victor that if anything were to happen to him, his father would be very sad, calling him young master. Victor's face contorts with rage. He warns Algren never to call him that again, threatening to kill the bottom feeder. A terrified Algren immediately apologizes. Watching from the side, Alfred realizes the commander is even more incompetent than he imagined. Because of Algren's rank, no one can disagree with his plan. Alfred grimly concludes that this incompetent commander's plan will result in a torrent of blood. Outside the fortress, Algren gives the order for the Order of the Phoenix Wings to advance. Algren bellows for his troops to demolish the gates. One of his knights casts a ritual magic spell, a powerful battering ram which smashes through the fortress entrance. The spell sends defenders flying. The knights charge into the breach. The few barbarians inside react in shock. The Imperial soldiers cry out for the slaughter, eager to decorate the fort with their enemy's blood. The battle begins, and the vastly outnumbered barbarians are cut down with ease by the charging knights. Watching the one-sided massacre, Algren laughs maniacally, praising his invincible Order of the Phoenix Wings. His men continue their charge deeper into the fortress. A lone figure watches silently from the shadows. From the fortress walls, the barbarian commander reveals her plan. She had deliberately shown an unnaturally small force, expecting a fellow commander to recognize it as a ploy to initiate a standoff. She is surprised that such a fool would take such obvious bait. Her subordinate agrees, and she concludes that the rumors about the Empire's self-serving, foolish nobles must be true. She dismisses them as lambs walking to the slaughter and decides to make them pay. Her subordinate gives the order to set the fortress ablaze. As the knights advance, they find their path is slick with something. They discover barrels of oil have been placed throughout the fortress. Suddenly, the oil ignites. With everything going as planned, the fortress erupts in a massive explosion. The barbarian leader declares that it is now time for their real attack. Standing over a fallen knight, the barbarian commander smiles, ready to give the trapped Imperial army an elegant show. The barbarian defenders are stunned by the sheer number of Imperial soldiers, wondering where they concealed themselves. Rewinding time to a few moments earlier, near the barbarian hideout, Lord Algren laughs maniacally, ordering his rear unit to bring down a deluge of barbarian blood. When his subordinate warns him of Alfred's suspicion that the barbarians have laid a trap, Algren scoffs, dismissing the idea. He points to their 5,000 troops in the rearguard as an insurmountable advantage. Convinced that victory and a grand promotion are within his grasp, his face twists into a smug smirk. He watches a distant explosion with glee, believing it to be a sign of his splendid triumph. His elation quickly turns to confusion as he questions why the fortress is exploding. A knight dashes towards him, shouting that they've been ambushed. The rider brings dire news. There are already many casualties inside the fort, and the Imperial forces are now at a disadvantage. Algren angrily dismisses the report as nonsense, believing the barbarians' small numbers couldn't possibly turn the tide, and demands to know who caused the explosion. The knight insists it wasn't their forces who caused the blast. From afar, the barbarian princess decides it's time to set off the big one. She smirks, confirming the explosions were part of her scheme. A second, far more massive explosion engulfs the fortress. Lord Algren screams in utter shock and horror. The knight reports the terrible situation, explaining that the explosions are caused by gunpowder infused with mana. He fears it's the barbarians' final act of resistance, an attempt to wipe out everyone indiscriminately. Algren can only stare in disbelief, his mind struggling to process the disaster. Alfred calmly remarks that the Zaragatos tribe launching a fire assault is exactly what he predicted, while his companion is shocked by the enemy's willingness to burn the base. Alfred clarifies that the fortress is only important to their side, as the Zaragatos tribe does not settle on any particular piece of land. Since they have no land to protect, they can easily sacrifice the fortress as bait. His companion realizes the entire forest must be their territory. Thylos correctly identifies the enemy's use of the empty fort strategy. Thylos calls it a brilliant plan to set the place ablaze and retreat. He explains that against the 10,000-strong Order of the Phoenix Wings, a direct fight was impossible. He theorizes the enemy's only path to victory was to lure as many soldiers as possible inside the fort and set it ablaze before making their own escape. Alfred notes that Thylos has never formally studied military tactics. Thylos agrees, but explains that he always tries to understand the motivations behind an enemy's actions. He declares himself Alfred's student, vowing to emulate his master's ability to stay several steps ahead of their foes. Thylos reaffirms his resolve, stating Alfred is the only master he could ever have. His companion eagerly asks Alfred to score Thylos' analysis. Alfred reflects that Thylos has been chasing his example, but says he can only give a proper score once they see the final result. Alfred delivers a stunning compliment. In terms of wits, Thylos is on par with their enemy Ammon. The comparison leaves Thylos utterly shocked to be placed on the same level as their foe. Thylos calls the comparison cruel. Their companion quickly deciphers the true meaning, realizing Alfred was actually scoring Thylos very highly. She giggles, teasing Alfred for his inability to praise people honestly. As Alfred's group approaches their destination, the scene shifts. The barbarian princess's advisor cautions that their ambush only succeeded because the enemy was poorly trained and that they could have been annihilated. The princess brushes off her advisor's concerns, arguing that the plan worked. She proudly declares that as a warrior race, they could never lose to the soft soldiers of the Empire. She rallies her men to agree. They erupt in a deafening cheer, much to the chagrin of her advisor who wishes for a quieter retreat. She smiles, basking in her troops' sky-high morale and declaring that all's well that ends well. She turns to her advisor for a response. Her eye catches a figure down the path. It's Alfred, who apologizes for interrupting their celebration. Alfred stands before them confidently, explaining that he cannot allow his foes to escape with a one-sided victory, as it would negatively affect his own side's morale. Princess Roua of the Zaragatos tribe confronts a lone Imperial soldier, Alfred, dismissing him as a child but warning him that he should be prepared to die. Finding his presence a nuisance during wartime, she tells him to start running away. Alfred calmly responds, stating that he believes her words apply to them both. With a chilling smile, Alfred returns her threat, saying what she said goes for both of them. An intense wave of bloodlust washes over Roua, making her shudder. A boisterous warrior from the Zanzu clan laughs, mocking the Empire for not having seen enough of its own blood spilled. He asks the princess to let his clan have some fun with the lone enemy. As the Zanzu warrior charges forward, Roua screams for him to wait. Her instincts are screaming a warning that her men cannot sense. She realizes that they absolutely must not fight this man and desperately tries to warn everyone. In a desperate shout, Roua orders everyone to get out of the way as Alfred unleashes a Longinus bullet. Roua looks back in horror, realizing her dreadful hunch was correct. The blast tears through the warriors who failed to heed her warning. Roua realizes with dread that they are the ones being hunted. Sensing another attack is imminent, she shouts for everyone's attention. She orders her surviving troops to make a break for the treacherous Calamity Forest. Her warriors scatter and run for their lives under a hail of magical bullets. Alfred watches them flee. As the forest falls silent, he stands alone amidst the carnage. Back with his companions, Alfred remarks on the princess's quick thinking, noting she chose death's road without hesitation. His companions are confused by the term. Thylos clarifies that she led them into a location so rife with monsters it's essentially a dangerous dungeon. Thylos notes that her impressive split-second decision is precisely why they cannot pursue them directly into the forest. Alfred agrees. He commends her elegant leadership and identifies her as the princess of the Zaragatos tribe. Deep within the Calamity Forest, Princess Roua and her remaining warriors are surrounded by monsters. She asks for a count of their remaining men. Her advisor reports they've been separated, but estimates that between the beasts and the earlier attack, their army of 2,000 has been cut in half. Roua grimly acknowledges how badly they've been outplayed, especially after intruding on a salamander's nest. With the forest now on fire, she knows their situation is critical. Her men begin to panic as the flames spread, fearing they'll be wiped out. Roua roars for her men not to lose heart. She takes command, announcing she will give the order to run at her signal. She knows the route and timing will be vital. Having already calculated the wind direction and the fire's spread, she scans the chaos to find the weakest point in the salamander's formation. She spots an opening to the west. "Run to the west," she screams, ordering her men not to stop for anything. Her warriors rally, charging through the remaining monsters. Her advisor marvels at her foresight, wondering if she knew this path existed. The path leads them to the Zamasu River, and her men cheer, realizing the salamanders cannot follow them to the riverbank. Roua smiles, her plan a success. She thanks her men but notes they still don't know the fate of their separated comrades. Her advisor is once again impressed by her leadership. Her advisor reflects that Princess Roua truly possesses the blood of a leader, just like her predecessor. Roua feels a momentary sense of relief, believing that once they cross the river, not even the Imperial soldiers can find them. Though they took heavy losses, she steels her resolve and refuses to let it get her down. Roua rallies her men to prepare to cross the river. Suddenly, one of her men is struck down by a magical projectile. She looks on in disbelief. She is horrified that their best escape route has been compromised. On the cliffs overlooking the riverbank stand Alfred and a line of archers. She realizes with dawning terror that the monster had anticipated her every move. Alfred raises his hand and calls for his archers. With a cold, confident smile, Alfred gives the command to his archers, "Let your arrows fly." A storm of projectiles descends upon the warriors below. From his high vantage point, Alfred gives the command to let the arrows fly. Roua watches in horror, realizing the impossible trajectory of the magically guided arrows. Roua screams for her troops to spread out, warning them that the arrows are controlled by magic. She tells them to move or they will be targeted next. Her advisor frantically orders them into a counterattack formation. A soldier can only express his fear. Watching the carnage from the cliff, Alfred knows the outcome of the battle has been decided. Surrounded by the fallen, Roua comes to the same grim conclusion: it is no longer possible for them to fight back. Alfred halts the attack. To Roua's shock, he leaps down from the cliff by himself. As he lands and approaches, her advisor speculates that he has come to demand their surrender. Roua scoffs at the idea of surrender, knowing the cruel fate that awaits Imperial captives. Drawing her blade, she declares that if she is to die, she will choose to do so with her honor intact. Alfred calmly tells her to calm down, stating that his side has no intention of fighting them any longer. Roua defiantly shouts that the Zaragatos tribe will never yield. He clarifies that he is not there to demand their surrender or take them prisoner, catching her completely off guard. He declares the battle over. He tells them to retreat. Roua is stunned, questioning why he would let them go. Alfred simply states that the battle has concluded and he has no wish to take their lives unnecessarily. Ryuja's mind races. Letting them go makes no strategic sense. It would be in the Empire's best interest to eliminate them. Then a chilling possibility dawns on her. He is letting them live to become witnesses of their own crushing defeat, a move designed to shatter her army's morale. She accuses him of having another motive. Alfred, acknowledging their history of conflict, states that he believes this war is unnecessary. Ryuja laughs, pointing her weapon at him and questioning how he can speak of peace when he brought an entire platoon of soldiers. Alfred explains that negotiation is built upon power. Without a sufficient show of force, his words would mean nothing. Ryuja remains unconvinced, telling him that if he truly believes such a lie will work, he is severely underestimating her tribe. Alfred tells her she is free to dismiss his words as lies, but reveals the Empire has its own internal issues and is not as united as she thinks. He suggests her side is in the same boat, which makes her flinch. Seeing no further point in talking, Ryuja gives the order for her troops to retreat, cautioning them to maintain formation but not to attack unless provoked. As her warriors question the decision not to fight, Alfred watches them leave. He reflects that while the Zaragatos are a warrior race, their princess chose to retreat the moment she knew victory was impossible. He concludes she is neither cowardly nor barbaric, but a leader who understands how to choose her battles. He smiles, acknowledging that her leadership is filled with an indomitable spirit, just as he expected. As she walks away, Ryuja grits her teeth, admitting to herself that they were completely defeated. After ambush upon ambush, all they have left are their lives, spared only to witness their own loss. Ryuja reflects on their losses, having lost over 70% of their men. She finds it laughable that Alfred claimed not to be interested in taking lives after killing so many. A realization hits her. As her advisor asks what troubles her, she suddenly stops. She confirms her suspicion. Almost all of the survivors are from her own clan, the Zaragazo. The surviving warriors are confused. Her advisor is stunned by the revelation. Ryuja recalls Alfred's words about the war being unnecessary. She explains that her clan was the only one against attacking the Empire. By letting the majority of her clan survive, Alfred sent a clear and deliberate message. The truth hits her with full force. Alfred was serious about making peace. She wonders how he could have possibly discerned which clan each warrior belonged to in the heat of battle. Ryuja shudders at the thought. If he truly managed to pull off such a feat, then he is more than just a skilled commander. He is a monster in every sense of the word. In the war-torn lands, the barbarian extermination force holds a strategic meeting. Supreme Commander Algren listens to a report, his face grim as he acknowledges that they have suffered considerable losses. One of the Knight commanders reports that due to their previous strategy, roughly half of the Order of the Phoenix Wings lost their lives. He suggests to Supreme Commander Algren that they should retreat to the Empire and regroup. Algren, however, scoffs at the idea, dismissing the losses as insignificant to their grand operation. Slamming his hand on the table, Algren reminds them that they still have 70,000 of the Emperor's personal soldiers, the Imperial Guards, under their command. The commander protests, arguing that the Zaragatos tribe has gained momentum from their initial overwhelming victory. He reminds Algren that the Emperor himself entrusted them with the lives of the Imperial Guards, urging caution. But Algren declares with a sinister grin that a retreat is out of the question. He reveals his true intentions. The main objective of the expedition is not to prove the Empire's strength, but to ruin the Imperial Guards. The other commanders are horrified by his admission. Algren internally laments the loss of half his own Order of the Phoenix Wings. However, he sees their sacrifice as proof of a harsh battle, a necessary step to prove his allegiance to the 10 Great Lords. From his twisted perspective, a few thousand knights is a small price to pay for his political gain. A commander then asks about the whereabouts of Commander Alfred. Algren seizes the opportunity, declaring that the coward has deserted the battlefield under the pretense of scouting. As Supreme Commander, he vows that desertion is a hefty sin for which Alfred will be punished. Algren vows to ensure Alfred suffers harsh consequences for his supposed desertion. Just then, a messenger knight bursts into the tent, interrupting the meeting. The knight apologetically brings news about the Zaragatos soldiers who had ambushed them in the castle. Algren immediately fears they have initiated another surprise attack. The messenger clarifies that it was not another attack. Instead, Commander Alfred and the Imperial Guard's 3rd Division have allegedly exterminated the ambushers. Algren is left speechless, his face a mask of pure shock and rage at the news. Deep in the great forest, at the Zaragato's tribe shrine, a new meeting is taking place. A defeated Roua kneels before her new chieftain. Grand Chieftain Makahim asks the princess if her defeat is why she came running back from the battlefield. Kneeling before him, Roua can only admit she has no words to offer. Makahim coldly informs her that due to her loss, the Zaragazo clan has lost its seat as the chief clan. They are now the lowest rank in the tribe, nothing but slaves. To rescue themselves, he tells a stunned Roua they must achieve something significant. He then offers her a chance to prove her worth. He orders her to engage the Imperial army in Marzana's territory. Roua protests vehemently, reminding him that their tribe's greatest strength comes from the blessings of Lord Abaddon, which they lack in that specific territory. Makahim sneers, stating that the Zaragatos are fearless warriors and have no room for cowards, not even as slaves. Roua realizes his true intent. She recalls how Makahim assassinated her ailing father to become chieftain. She knows he considers her clan a nuisance and that this order is not a chance for redemption. He is sending them to their deaths. He is ordering them to march straight toward their own demise. 2 weeks later at the Marzana's camp, the stage is set for the coming battle. In a watchtower, Roua reviews intelligence on the Imperial Army's formation and composition, questioning if the information is accurate. Her advisor confirms that the information can be trusted. He explains that while the Empire is deploying all of its Imperial guards, their other forces are mere mercenaries, led by amateur civil officers. Furthermore, most of them are part of the Emperor's faction, leading Roua to a startling conclusion. Staring out at the enemy encampment, Roua understands. The Imperial soldiers, just like her own clan, are being ordered to march to their own deaths. Overwhelmed by this grim parallel, she leans over the railing in despair. She sends out a prayer to her gods of battle. She laments that the beauty of a head-on battle she seeks is nowhere to be found on this battlefield. Elsewhere, a breeze blows past Alfred as he stands on a cliff overlooking the same camp. A voice calls out his name. 2 figures approach, a girl asking where he is going in the middle of the night. Alfred states that the Zaragazo princess is in charge. He suggests that he and his companion take a walk into their camp, which the girl thinks is a crazy idea. The boy with her asks who he plans on going with. Alfred looks up, addressing someone hidden in the trees. He tells them it is their time to shine, revealing his companion to be Deathblaze, one of the 5 divine generals of battle. Alfred and Deathblaze vault silently over the walls of the Marzana's camp. One of the guards senses a slight disturbance, but his comrade dismisses it as his imagination. From the shadows, Alfred is impressed. Even with their advanced magic, the elite soldiers still notice something was amiss. As they land, Deathblaze remarks that Alfred's skills are as monstrous as ever. She explains to a curious Alfred that the camp is littered with anti-stealth barriers, yet they passed through undetected. Having served Lord Abaddon, she has seen many battles, but she has never witnessed such a feat. Deathblaze muses that she shouldn't have expected any less from the man her lord considers a sworn friend. Suddenly, Alfred holds up a hand, stopping her. He notes that things are not going to be so simple. A guard finally spots them, raising the alarm. The guard shouts, alerting the camp to their presence. Alfred realizes that completely hiding their presence from the elite soldiers was not possible. As the soldiers surround them, Deathblaze grins, declaring that it is now her turn to act. Alfred, however, stops her, stating there's no need for her to intervene. He smirks, telling her that she is not the best at holding back. He steps forward to face the charging guards alone. A guard is stunned as Alfred effortlessly evades a thrust. They are shocked by his incredible speed. He dodges another attack from behind. Alfred parries a 3rd spear, the force of the blow ringing through the air. The guards, acknowledging Alfred's skill, realize they have no other choice. Their leader orders them to rush him down all at once. Spears converge on him from every direction, but Alfred remains calm and composed. With incredible agility, Alfred twists through the storm of spear points, deflecting and dodging with fluid movements that leave the soldiers baffled. A guard cries out in frustration, unable to believe that none of their attacks are landing. Watching from a distance, Deathblaze is impressed, noting they are in the heart of the enemy camp facing their best soldiers. Yet Alfred is casually parrying every attack without using a hint of magic. Deathblaze realizes Alfred is not even trying to harm them, he is simply neutralizing them without a scratch. With the guards subdued, Deathblaze decides it is about time to proceed. A defeated soldier can only think of Alfred as a total monster, his strength beyond comprehension. The commotion finally draws out a woman who demands to know what is happening. She recognizes Alfred, but is cut short as one of her guards calls out to her. Roua demands to know what he is planning by coming alone, but he calmly states he came to see her. He then asks the stunned princess if she would care to negotiate. Roua questions his offer to negotiate. Alfred explains that he saw her army's formation and instantly understood they were deployed as decoy fodder. Roua is shocked that he has seen through their strategy twice. Alfred then states his simple terms: allow his army safe passage through the checkpoint and one other thing. Alfred's second condition is for her to assist him in removing the corrupt elements festering within both the Zaragatos tribe and the Empire. In exchange for her help against the Empire's corrupt fools, he will handle the problems within her tribe, leaving Roua utterly stunned. Alfred confidently states that she can leave the fools in the Zaragatos tribe to him. Roua admits it is a good bargain, and that accepting seems like the smartest choice. However, she tells him there is something she must make clear. In the name of her god of battle, Abaddon, Roua declares that her tribe has vowed to never ally with someone of a different faith. Alfred acknowledges this, admitting he holds no faith in any specific god. But he sees a loophole in her vow, a way for their alliance to work. Alfred reveals that he has forged a bond with her god that goes beyond mere faith, as a monstrous being materializes behind him. Roua stares in utter shock. Roua recognizes the creature as one of Lord Abaddon's closest aides, a member of the 5 divine generals of battle. She finally understands why her soldiers were no match for him, while Alfred seems to have made a realization of his own. Looking at Roua with newfound understanding, he asks if he imagined it, or if she was, in fact, General Deathblaze's subordinate. Alfred corrects Rouge's assumption about his relationship with General Deathblaze. While a flustered Deathblaze tries to interject, Alfred clarifies that he holds a higher rank. He explains that it is not he who is the subordinate, but the other way around. The revelation leaves Roua utterly bewildered. Roua reels in shock, unable to believe what she's hearing. Alfred can only sigh at the unfolding chaos. As she tries to process the information, the realization begins to dawn on her. The terrifying truth crashes down on Roua. If General Deathblaze serves their supreme god Abaddon, and Alfred outranks the general, then she has been treating a being of immense authority with hostility. As she panics, Deathblaze rushes to intervene. 10 hours earlier, at the Imperial Army's forward camp, 1st Division Commander Xenon Valgrace contemplates the recent commanders' meeting. He recalls Commander Alfred's bold declaration. Xenon wonders if he could possibly succeed. Supreme Commander Algren arrogantly dismissed the enemy as primitive barbarians, outnumbered 10-1. He declared that their army would charge forward with full might to crush them, accepting no objections. Xenon, however, rose to voice his concerns, asking the Supreme Commander to wait. Xenon passionately argued against the plan, reminding Algren of the significant losses they suffered previously when underestimating the Zaragatos tribe's prowess. He cautioned that they could be walking into a trap. He suggested a more observant approach, but Algren scoffed at the idea. Declaring the Empire invincible, Algren ordered the attack to commence the next morning, with the Imperial Guards leading the charge. Xenon protested that as the 1st Division commander, the guards were under his command, and Algren had no right to deploy them so recklessly. Algren asserted his authority as the highest decision-maker in the army. He challenged Xenon to a court-martial if he wished to contest the order. Seething with frustration, Xenon knew this chaotic situation was Algren's own doing, stemming from their previous failed operation to reclaim Fort Trausen. Algren conceded that a full-scale assault would likely secure victory, but questioned if their true goal wasn't to strike at the tribe's core. Xenon argued that they should conserve their forces. Algren cut him off, calling him tedious. He declared his decision final. Internally, Algren reveled in his plan. Exhausting their forces was his exact goal. Algren's malicious intent became clear in his thoughts. He wanted the Imperial Guards and the barbarians to destroy each other. Xenon realized the commander's plan was misguided. He knew it would cause irreversible damage to the guards, but he was powerless to stop it. At that moment of despair, he noticed Alfred's arrival. Alfred calmly approached Algren, stating he had information to share. Enraged, Algren demanded to know if he was also challenging his orders. Alfred explained that the enemy force was the Zaragazo clan, its previous leader clan. He pointed out that their formation suggested they were meant to be annihilated, as if their own side wanted to be rid of them. Based on this intelligence, Alfred suggested that they might be able to negotiate a retreat. Algren erupted in derisive laughter, calling Alfred a half-wit for his nonsense proposal. He mocked the idea of reasoning with battle-crazed barbarians who worshipped a king of hell. Algren continued to mock the proposal as utterly ridiculous. Zenon watched, wondering what Alfred was planning. Unfazed, Alfred confirmed the army would advance the next morning and announced he would leave to speak with the Zaragatos tribe personally. Algren forbade him from taking the 3rd Division. Alfred clarified he had no intention of bringing any of the Emperor's troops. With a confident smirk, Alfred stated that surely Algren could have no objections to him going alone. He then turned and left the tent, leaving a stunned Algren and Zenon behind. Back in the present, Zenon confirms that Commander Alfred has left for the enemy encampment alone. He remains deeply skeptical that anyone could negotiate with the Zaragatos tribe. Suddenly, a clamor from the watchtower draws his attention. He demands a report. A scout shouts that the Zaragatos soldiers are on the move. Through the spyglass, the scout sees the enemy forces turning away. In disbelief, he reports to Zenon that the Zaragatos soldiers appear to have begun their retreat. Zenon is utterly astonished, proclaiming it to be like magic. He reflects that after giving up on convincing Algren, Alfred simply took matters into his own hands and changed the course of the battle all by himself. Zenon can only marvel at what an astonishing man Alfred is. Watching from nearby, Alfred's aides remark that this is just business as usual for him. However, they acknowledge that for the Imperial army, witnessing such a feat must feel like seeing a miracle. Princess Roua grovels on the floor, profusely apologizing to Lord Alfred for her actions. She and her retainer, Galgon, beg for forgiveness. Alfred's aides explain to the bewildered pair that they had no idea Alfred was actually General Deathblaze's superior. Alfred tells Roua to raise her head, reminding her that as Zaragatos royalty, she shouldn't lower her head so easily. Taking his words to heart, Roua springs to her feet, loudly declaring she won't lower her head or act humble ever again. Alfred adds that there is no need for excessive humility. She enthusiastically agrees, promising to stop acting humble. Pounding her chest, Roua vows to act with confidence from now on. Watching this sudden and dramatic shift in personality, one of Alfred's aides observes her. She privately wonders if they can possibly get along with someone so intense. As Alfred sips his tea, his aides are baffled by how he managed to convert an enemy princess into a follower overnight. Their thoughts are interrupted when Roua eagerly offers to refill Alfred's cup. He quickly stops her, reiterating that as royalty, she has no need to perform such tasks. Frustrated by the refusal, Roua throws her hands up, exclaiming she won't pour any more tea. Seeing an opportunity, Galgon steps forward, insisting he be allowed to serve in the princess's place. The bizarre scene unfolds before a silent Alfred and his equally speechless aides. With a wry smile, Alfred finally relents, telling them they can act as they please. Delighted, Roua and Galgon cheer in unison. With that, Princess Rouge's clan has officially joined Al's company. Alfred considers the matter settled. His thoughts are momentarily distracted by Galgon, enthusiastically overfilling his teacup. The scene then shifts to the grand imperial capital. Inside a lavish room overlooking the city, two men discuss recent events. Auguste de Grandel, head of House Grandel, remarks that the situation has taken a bad turn. Imperial Chancellor Duke Robert Cavendish muses that while he's unsure what trick Alfred used, the young man is clearly clever. He notes that Alfred led the Imperial Guards to the Zaragatos territory almost unharmed. Auguste reveals he already knows this from his own information network and asks the Chancellor what Commander Algren reported. Cavendish explains that Algren's report was a rant about his incompetent officers with a particular focus on blaming Alfred. Auguste chuckles, eager to hear how Algren described the decimation of his own forces. They both understand that Algren and others are filing false reports to make Alfred a scapegoat, a complication for their plans. Auguste, however, sees this as an opportunity, suggesting they should appreciate the false report. He argues it allows them to treat the Supreme Commander's word as truth and dismiss any contradictory accounts. This plays into their larger scheme to ensure Alfred appears so incompetent that his replacement as head of the Balliol family becomes a natural conclusion. Cavendish concedes the point, but notes that the Imperial Guards are marching steadily onward. Auguste acknowledges that the real battle hasn't started, as the Zaragatos tribe is most powerful in their sacred territory. Still, he admits that if the Imperial Guards return largely intact, it would certainly complicate their plans. The Duke declares that the guards returning would be an obstacle to their coup, forcing them to move their timeline forward. He asks August about preparations. August, expecting this decision, reveals he has already hired the best assassin the Eastern Assassins Guild can provide. With the Imperial Guards away on their expedition, Cavendish gloats that assassinating the Emperor will be child's play. News of the Emperor's death would rattle the front lines, creating an opportunity the Zaragatos tribe would surely exploit. August concludes that the Imperial Guards will be history, and any chance of a rebellion will be buried along with them. Cavendish agrees, declaring their plan to be perfect. Meanwhile, at the Brim Cross governor's mansion, the governor is deep in thought. He reflects that Lord Alfred has entrusted the Emperor's safety to them. He turns to a silhouetted figure and asks for a status report on the security. The figure steps out of the shadows, revealing herself to be Lady Ophelia, the great vampire and queen of the night, who is overseeing the Emperor's protection. He sighs, feeling a deep sense of pity for himself. He laments that despite his title as Emperor, he holds no true authority and has resorted to writing. The something he has chosen to write is not an official document, but a simple poem. His eyes drift to the ornate ring on his finger. The ring triggers a memory of a past meeting. He remembers Alfred Balliol kneeling before him, offering the ring as a gift. In the memory, Alfred explained that he was to be rewarded for his efforts in assembling the Dragon People army. The Emperor found the situation backward, as he was the one who had summoned Alfred, yet it was Alfred presenting him with a gift. Alfred insisted that His Majesty's acceptance would mean more to him than any other reward. The Emperor had accepted the gift. Alfred implored him to keep it on his person at all times. Back in the present, the Emperor reflects on the strange young man. He felt a strange compulsion to always wear the ring, just as Alfred had instructed. Suddenly, the window shatters as an intruder bursts into the room. Startled, the Emperor realizes he is under attack. The assassin lands with a smirk as the Emperor quickly gets to his feet, shouting for the guards. The assassin mockingly asks if he really thinks his guards will come. The Emperor draws his sword to defend himself. He recognizes this as a professional assassination and wonders if his own untested blade stands any chance. The assassin lunges, telling him to finish his thoughts in the afterlife. The Emperor realizes the assassin is too fast. He can't stop the attack and is certain he is about to die. In the final moment, the ring on his finger flashes brightly. Tendrils of dark energy erupt from it, blocking the fatal blow and stunning the assassin. A figure emerges from the shadows, effortlessly deflecting the assassin's blades. Ophelia chides the attacker, pointing out his noisy footsteps and the lingering smell of smoke, which betrayed his position. The assassin trembles, recognizing his opponent as the great vampire Ophelia. She delivers a harsh critique, telling him he fails to even achieve a passing grade before swiftly incapacitating him. Ophelia turns to the Emperor and apologizes for intruding in his ring without permission. The Emperor stares at his hand in disbelief, realizing that Alfred's gift had protected him. Ophelia informs him that the assassin chose to take his own life before she could extract any information. Ophelia states that the other assassins are likely reporting the failure and that they should leave the rest in Alfred's hands. The scene shifts to another room where Duke Cavendish is playing chess, asking his late-night visitor why he has come. Duke Cavendish's opponent is Sir Ammon, who calmly moves a chess piece and declares, "Check." The Duke is inwardly shaken, as he just received word that the Emperor's assassination had failed. He tries to compose himself, reasoning that the attempt was always a gamble. Ammon remarks that many in the imperial court enjoy a good game of chess. Ammon continues his veiled commentary, stating that a game is just a game. With a smirk, he adds that one should only ever aim for the king that's on the board, before pointedly declaring, "Checkmate." The Duke's composure shatters as he realizes Ammon knows about their plan. He wonders how the information could have possibly leaked when the assassin was supposed to have died. The Duke's mind races, trying to understand what the resourceful Sir Ammon could be scheming. Ammon explains that he came because he received a message from Sir Alfred. He was asked to inform the Duke that Alfred intends to clear the corruption in the court and bring about a new order centered on the Emperor. Cavendish internally seethes, calling it a barefaced lie. He concludes that Ammon would never act as a mere messenger, meaning the words are Ammon's own. He spirals, believing Ammon intends to outmaneuver them and claim the seat of Imperial Chancellor for himself. He fears Ammon will turn the Emperor into his puppet and establish a new order with the Magic Guild at the top. The Duke realizes that Ammon's public neutrality protects him from any political fallout. At this rate, Ammon will steal his ambition of becoming Imperial Chancellor. He has used assassins to remove obstacles before, but now he faces an impossible question: who could he possibly send to assassinate the strongest man alive? Cavendish realizes that all the rumors about Ammon's shrewdness and cunning were true. Slamming his fist on the table, he declares Ammon a true tyrant of a man. Across the table, Ammon sits in silence as the Duke curses his predicament. While Duke Cavendish fumes openly, Sir Ammon is consumed by his own silent rage, furious that Alfred has dared to use him as a mere messenger. Thanks to Alfred's scheme, he is now forced into a hostile stance against the 10 great lords. In a fit of rage matching the Duke's, he internally screams Alfred's name, vowing to have his revenge. Riding in a carriage, Lord August reviews a report, concluding that Sir Ammon has become a hostile actor. He reflects that he began this investigation after hearing of suspicious activities, believing Ammon is using Alfred as a figurehead for his plans. The report details the unbelievable transformation of Brim Cross, once the Empire's largest and most hopeless slum city. It has been turned into a massive walled city, stretching over 2,000 meters. He questions the immense resources required for such a feat, dismissing his investigators' findings as terrible. Finding the report utterly ridiculous, August decides he must verify the information with his own eyes. Upon his arrival, Lord August is immediately confronted by a sight that leaves him utterly dumbfounded. He looks up to see several dragons flying overhead, assisting with the construction of the city walls. He shouts in disbelief, unable to comprehend that dragons are involved in the construction work. His attention is then drawn to the cheerful sounds of children playing and racing each other to a park. Lord August realizes with a grim expression that the massive, dragon-built walls are not the only unsettling thing here. Walking through the streets, he is stunned by the vibrant and bustling city life. He struggles to reconcile this with his knowledge that Brim Cross was supposed to be a den of starving addicts. As he ponders how such a rapid transformation was possible, 2 figures approach. An elderly man and a woman with a mechanical eye patch greet him, offering to act as his guides for the inspection. August accepts their welcome, though he internally notes that this prevents him from investigating his guides. The 2 guides covertly acknowledge that August is unaware they foiled his assassination attempt on the Emperor, deciding to feign peace for now. When August asks how they funded the city's rebirth, he is told it was financed by selling off property. The elderly man explains that they sold off nearly all of House Balial's property. The guide adds that Sir Ammon and the Magic Guild also provided generous support, which gave them enough to begin construction. This confirms August's suspicions about Ammon's involvement. He questions the purpose of turning a slum into a heavily fortified city, a task far more demanding than simple revitalization. Then a horrifying realization dawns on him: the city is perfectly connected to all of the Empire's major cities. The strategic implications hit August with full force, leading him to believe Sir Ammon is planning a military coup. He tries to rationalize that perhaps it is just a threat, a bargaining chip to be used in negotiations. August clutches his head in agony, unable to fathom Ammon's true intentions. His guides observe, thinking Ammon is a terrifyingly cunning man who has left them no foundation to work from. Lord August is overwhelmed by the immense pressure, never imagining he would be subjected to such a cunning stratagem. Meanwhile, the perceived mastermind, Ammon, is in the midst of a complete mental breakdown. He desperately tries to deny reality, laughing manically and deluding himself into thinking he could easily eliminate his problems if he just tried. In a different location, Alfred and his allies are briefed on the Empire's current state of affairs. The Zaragato's princess remarks that her tribe is not the only one facing internal strife. Alfred dismisses the Empire's political infighting as utterly pathetic. Cedric adds that the nobles likely have no idea their true objective is war against the monster kind, a concept Alfred believes is beyond their comprehension. The princess is shocked to hear that Lord Alfred is planning a war against the monster kind. Alfred confirms this has been his goal from the beginning, and the battle against Makahim is just a stepping stone. He then asks if even the Zaragato's tribe fears defying the monster kind. The princess quietly says no. Her expression shifts to one of fierce excitement as she envisions Alfred trampling the ruler of monster kind. She declares with joy that she imagined joining his ranks as a simple member in that glorious battle. Cedric is amazed that the Zaragato's royalty has come to respect Master Alfred so deeply. The princess asks if it is truly all right for her clan not to participate in the upcoming battle. Alfred reassures her that it is fine, as their withdrawal was at his request. He explains that ordering people to fight against their own kind goes against his principles. He tells the princess that while she may join his army, he wants her to refrain from using force unless it is for self-defense. She agrees to his terms. Alfred then steers the conversation back to discussing their enemy's likely strategy. The princess points out their location, stating the Grand Chieftain will likely attack with his full might at the Zaragatos shrine. Alfred believes their enemies will be merciless, but doubts non-combatants will be on the front lines. Lilim cheers, glad that they will only have to fight the worst of the tribe. However, she then worries that fighting in the shrine means their enemies will receive a powerful blessing from Abaddon. The princess angrily corrects Lilim, stating that Lord Abaddon is the god of battle, not a king of hell, causing Lilim to apologize. Cedric asks how formidable the blessing is. Lilim explains that since it's her lord's own blessing, the enemy will be significantly enhanced. Cedric concludes that they must prepare for significant losses. Alfred calmly refutes this. With a confident smirk, Alfred declares that it will be their overwhelming victory. A stunned Cedric asks if he has a plan. Alfred claps his hands and calls for the vice commander, announcing that it's her turn. Lilim wonders aloud about the vice commander. A woman in armor crashes headfirst into the room, announcing her arrival as requested. The bizarre entrance gives Lilim a strange sense of déjà vu, while the others look on in confusion. Alfred stands over a map, asking Vice Commander Leopold for a report on their preparations, telling the man he can stop groveling. Leopold rises, reporting that he has finished supplying the requested items to everyone. Cedric asks if the items are part of a secret strategy for their victory, and Alfred confirms they are. As Alfred begins to explain, he is interrupted by a concerned Leopold. Alfred asks what the matter is. Leopold demands to know why the tea has already been served. He is particularly upset about the way it was prepared. Alfred explains that Princess Roua prepared it for him. Leopold formally addresses Princess Roua, stating he has heard much about her. He prefaces his next statement by acknowledging it may be disrespectful to royalty. He erupts, shouting that Commander Alfred's tea must be served with 2 thin slices of lemon, a rule established by God that must be followed without fail. Alfred calmly tells Leopold that his tea preference is not a divine mandate and that his outburst was disrespectful to royalty. Roua clenches her fist and asks Alfred directly if that is truly how he likes his tea. He confirms that it is indeed his preference. Roua declares that she still has much to learn from Vice Commander Leopold on how to properly serve Lord Alfred. She asks him not to worry about disrespecting her, but to keep pointing out her faults. With a fierce expression, Roua amends her request, asking Alfred to train her as if she were a worthless pig. To Leopold's shock, he and the princess find common ground, clasping hands with intense resolve. Alfred is left momentarily speechless. Lilim notes that Al is at a loss for words, but he quickly regains his composure to continue the briefing. He states that the crucial factor in the upcoming battle will be their foe's blessing from Abaddon, and that how they obtained it is simple. Alfred explains it was merely the result of Abaddon's whim. He explains that because the Zaragatos tribe worshipped Abaddon, the simple-minded god created a shrine to grant them strength, a blessing that only works within its range. Lilim nervously asks if he has a secret plan to win against the blessing. Alfred confidently replies that they will fight fire with fire, blessing with blessing. Cedric stares in shock, recognizing the immense magic power emanating from Alfred's hand. Alfred reveals the source, a pendant filled with his mana, and he confirms there are enough for all the Imperial Guards. Alfred grins, saying that if Abaddon can supply power from so far away, he sees no reason why he cannot do the same while being physically present. Roua calls it a brilliant plan, but adds that she feels it is inappropriate for him to refer to Lord Abaddon without honorifics, even for someone of his standing. Alfred dismisses her concern, calling it a non-issue. He then reveals the reason: Abaddon is his sworn friend. Roua is left confused by this statement. She tries to process the information, realizing the chain of command she envisioned is incorrect. The truth dawns on her: Alfred and God Abaddon are equals. The word God echoes in their minds as the reality of Alfred's status sets in. Overwhelmed, both Roua and Leopold fall to the floor. Alfred sighs, telling them both to stop groveling. 8 days later, the Zaragatos forces have assembled at their front lines in the forest. A commander laughs, pleased that their plans are progressing well. At the Imperial Army forward base, Cedric tells Ammon that it's almost time for the decisive battle. Ammon surveys their forces, noting that the Imperial Guards form the vanguard, with the 10 Great Lords' hired troops behind them, creating a perfect formation. Cedric smirks, outlining their plan to fight the Zaragatos and then frame the Imperial Guard for treason before crushing them. Ammon agrees, confident that the Imperial Guards will never suspect an attack from their own allies. Bowing, Ammon promises to eliminate them mercilessly and asks Cedric to inform his father. Cedric scoffs, thinking the only wasteful thing is that it was Ammon who led the guards to their doom. Cedric's only regret is that he couldn't take advantage of the chaos to capture Lisa Wilson as his slave. He quickly dismisses the idea, deciding she is just a lowly commoner anyway. Meanwhile, at the Zaragatos tribe's main camp, the ground shakes as their war elephant and troops mobilize. Grand Chieftain Makahim calls the Imperials fools for attempting a head-on assault. He vows to show them the might of a divine power that transcends humanity. A commander orders the Great Shield Squad to the front. The soldiers form a wall with their massive shields. A lookout shouts that the enemy is incoming. The Imperial cavalry charges towards the Zaragatos line. A Zaragatos soldier laughs at the fools, boasting that within the shrine's range, their power is amplified tenfold, making a simple cavalry charge useless. The pendants worn by the Imperial Guard begin to glow brightly. The empowered cavalry smashes through the shield wall, sending the Zaragatos soldiers flying. A Zaragatos soldier screams in panic. He cries out that the Imperials are breaching their formation. Imperial commanders urge their troops onward, telling them not to falter as they charge into the fray. A young blonde mage begins casting a spell of incredible power, 9th-tier magic. His eyes narrow in concentration as he prepares to unleash the devastating attack. He unleashes the spell Infernal Nemesis, a cataclysmic blast that tears through the enemy ranks. Zaragatos soldiers scream in agony as they are consumed by the magical onslaught. The young mage is impressed with his own ability to command such high-level magic. Leopold observes the aide's power, remarking that it's to be expected from Commander Alfred's aide and a renowned genius from the Magic Academy. The aide humbly accepts the praise, but insists he has much to learn. He explains that a true aide should be to Alfred what Deathblaze is to Abaddon, a level of power he feels he is nowhere near achieving. Leopold listens thoughtfully to the young man's ambitious comparison. Despite his current limitations, the aide is determined to keep improving until he can call himself worthy. He notes that he isn't the only one putting in their best efforts, a sentiment that moves Leopold. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Lisa Wilson prepares her own 8th-tier magic, refusing to be outdone. Lisa unleashes Storm Fang, a powerful gust of wind that rips through the enemy. She clenches her fists in excitement, thrilled to have surpassed her previous limits. The Zaragatos soldiers cry out in disbelief, calling the Imperials' power a joke. They are utterly overwhelmed, declaring that their foes are far too strong. Nearby, Thylo sits quietly, observing the battle. He steps forward and calmly asks the panicked soldiers what the matter is. Lilim, standing beside him, asks why he isn't joining the fight. Thylos explains that he sees this as a good opportunity for his allies. He intends to let the Imperial soldiers and his comrades gain the confidence to fight without his direct intervention. He reflects on his past life, where he cared only about his own strength and tried to solve every issue by himself. This solitary focus, he recalls, led him to neglect the next generation and resulted in his assassination by the 3 holy sages. He now understands that strength is meaningless if it vanishes when he is gone, bringing everything to an end. He states that while his companions are like small sprouts now, he is confident they will grow into great trees. Lilim muses internally that it's hard to tell if he's being kind or strict, concluding it's simply his expectations speaking. Thylos concludes that these are his reasons for holding back. Thylos then turns the question to Lilim, asking why she, a divine general of battle, isn't fighting in her favorite kind of battlefield. She replies that she has no interest in dominating a battlefield against followers of her lord. She hadn't thought there was a need to risk any lives during this expedition. However, with a sudden intensity, she declares that she has now changed her mind. A ball of light forms in Lilim's hand as she prepares a devastating attack of her own. She unleashes a powerful beam of energy called Divine Annihilation. Lilim explains to a stunned Thylos that she learned from Princess Ruja that Makahim sent her out, intending for the Imperial soldiers to kill her, an act that desecrates the spirit of battle. She has already reported this to Lord Abaddon. Abaddon declared that by defiling the holy battlefield, the Zaragatos have forfeited their right to be his followers. Lilim smiles cruelly, certain they never imagined they would be forsaken by the very god they revered. Panic spreads through the Zaragatos' camp as the soldiers suddenly feel their strength leaving them, creating a clamor. In his command post, Grand Chieftain Makahim feels the change as well, wondering if Lord Abaddon's blessing has vanished. He questions the meaning of this sudden power loss. A subordinate rushes in to report to him. The soldier confirms Makahim's fears. Lord Abaddon's blessing has disappeared, shaking the entire army. Makahim realizes the whole tribe has lost their divine power as the soldier adds that their shaman's barriers are failing against the powerful enemy mages. The battlefield is falling into disarray as men desert in fear after losing the blessing. Before the soldier can finish his dire report, Makahim cuts him off with an order. Makahim sternly orders a retreat to the innermost part of their shrine. His subordinate questions the command, asking why they would retreat to that specific location. Makahim explains that while he doesn't know the cause, with their blessing gone, they have no other choice. The subordinate realizes with dawning horror that they must use their last resort. The subordinate protests, calling the plan too dangerous, while Makahim coldly asks how they are supposed to procure the necessary sacrifices. He insists the mighty Zaragatos tribe can still fight back without resorting to such measures. Makahim asks if he can still claim they can win, now that they stand on the brink of defeat. The soldier declares with fanatical conviction that the Zaragatos are at their most powerful when facing defeat. Makahim concedes that they might stand a chance. However, he notes that if they fail to stabilize the battlefield, his own life will be at risk. With a terrifying expression, he declares that sacrificing thousands of his own tribesmen's lives is a bargain of a price by comparison. The subordinate reluctantly agrees, and Makahim orders the message relayed. They are bringing the battle to the innermost fort. Alone, Makahim laughs about their last resort. He believes the Imperials are fools for following them. He thinks of the innermost part of their shrine, the very land where Lord Abaddon once descended. Makahim declares that they will harness the power of a god to pulverize the Imperials. With feverish anticipation, he proclaims that the time has come to summon their absolute god, Lord Abaddon himself.